When I think of Ezekiel, I generally think of Ezekiel saw the wheel. And that makes sense, right? Because that's his very first vision. And it's of heaven. In fact, I was just watching this bird a second ago kind of hop around, and I thought that's what Ezekiel really got right off the bat, was this sort of what it was like to fly, what it was like to see these angels who serve and really see God where he's at. And that was good, I think, for Ezekiel, because Ezekiel had a really hard road as a prophet. He prophesied for about 40 years. And he was picking up where Jeremiah really left off. And if you remember, Jeremiah didn't have a popular message, and he wasn't popular with the people, because his message was about them being taken to Babylon and that they had turned from the Lord. And Ezekiel has that same message for folks. But as you start to read through Ezekiel, what you get is a really good sense of the depth of Ezekiel's understanding of God's vision and his message. And where I really just left off with that today was God starts talking in parables to us through Ezekiel. And he starts with this eagle and the vine and what's going to happen. Then there's this great fire, and at one point God says, oh look, I'm talking in parables. And that to me really reminds me of Jesus and the way that Jesus would speak to us in parables. And so why did Jesus tell us that he spoke in parables? Well, he told us that because he wanted us to understand things. So he spoke to us in ways that we could relate to, the language that we understood, the themes, the words, all of that. And Jesus wasn't the only one to do that, right? When Peter would speak to the Jewish community, he would use words and phrases that were common to them that they would understand. When Paul would speak to the Gentiles, he used words and terms that they knew. And all of this, along with parables, helps us to understand the message. And God also uses parables, right? Because that's where we get it from. Because really think back to Jeremiah. Jeremiah was flat out telling people, this is what God said, and they wouldn't hearken to him. So God is a great God. He's good, right? So he changes tactics with us, and he starts to give Ezekiel this vision of heaven and what it's like up there, so he understands the importance of the service. And then he also, so we do too, I should say that, not just Ezekiel but us. And then he starts talking in parables to talk to us, to talk about this eagle who sets down a seed of the vine and how the vine spreads, and then how the people turn to another eagle, and that the fire which consumes from the south. These are images that are meant to remind the people of those days about what God is trying to tell them, because they're not listening to the direct message in front of them. And how great is Ezekiel, who has to bear that burden and pick up that great mantle from Jeremiah and do that great service while Daniel sits in Babylon, continuing on a very different path that we'll talk about next. All right, happy Sunday, chatting at Cheesman, hanging with Ezekiel and his wheel.